Most of us have heard of supply and demand. It's like the key concept in all of economics. Illustrating supply and demand pretty much looks like this. Exciting, eh? Well, this is the economy plain and simple after all, so we'd like to explain labor supply and demand and how it impacts wages in a language every Canadian understands. There we go. The supply of and demand for labor looks a bit like two hockey sticks. Blue for supply and yellow for demand. Running along the width of the net, from left to right, is the number of workers. And running up the goalpost, from bottom to top, is the wage rate. Let's look at the supply of labor, the blue stick. When the wage offered is low, not many people want to work for such a low wage. So the supply of labor is low down here at the blade. When the wage offered increases, more people will want to work. That's why we show labor supply as an upward sloping line, or a hockey stick, because as the wage increases, so does the supply of labor. Now let's look at the demand for labor, the yellow stick. It's the opposite of the labor supply stick. At a low wage rate, companies will demand lots of workers because they don't cost much. But as the wage rate goes up, workers get more costly, so companies will demand fewer workers. Now let's look at supply and demand together. The red line shows demand for and supply of labor at a given wage rate. You notice the problem? When the wage rate is low, companies demand lots of workers. But not enough workers want to work for that wage. We end up with a gap. So, to clear that gap and make the number of workers demanded equal to the number supplied, the wage needs to rise. As it does, companies will reduce their demand for workers, and the supply will go up. They meet in the middle, which we in economist land call the equilibrium. It means that supply and demand are equal. Okay, now let's look at what happens if we add more teams, in other words, companies, because the league, in other words, the economy, is doing well. Because there are more teams, there is more demand for the same amount of labor. This shifts that demand curve up and to the right, and that means players can command higher wages. And finally, what happens if we add more supply? Like, say, all the European hockey players who now play in the league versus 40 years ago. Well, that means there are more top-level hockey players, so the supply shifts out. All else being equal? Yep, you guessed it. This puts downward pressure on wages. So there you have it. Labor, supply, and demand in the language of hockey. Easy, right?